I hope everyone's having a beautiful and blessed morning. Thank you for everyone that's going to be watching and will be watching and is watching. Just want to glorify God, give thanks. Good morning, good morning. uh, so, my dad and I had a discussion the other day because we were trying to figure out how to, or I was trying to figure out really how to inherit it into Easter because to me, Easter's not really was a leader thing necessarily. So I was trying to figure out what exactly could symbolize what it meant that what Jesus did could show leadership. And so the title, as you'll see, the notion that I'm pointing to is that the sacrifice that Jesus did, or what he did, was a way of showing us where he was as a leader for his people because he was able to sacrifice his well-being and who he was to die for us and to come backwards. And so what I said was it was the self-sacrifice, and I wanted to start off and say serves others and sacrifices what he does. He will at times sacrifice who he is in order to show love for others, right? So in 1 Peter 4:10-11, it says, as each one has received a gift, minister it to one another as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. If anyone speaks, let him speak as the oracles of God. If anyone ministers, let him do as it is with the ability which God supplies. But in all things, God may be glorified through Jesus Christ, to whom belong the glory and dominion forever. Right? So, I think I missed a verse actually. No, I said the right thing. Okay, I was making sure. I was like, wait a minute. In my notes, I was reading my here and reading my notes. I was like, does it say the same thing? I remember I have two different translations here. I have my NKJV in my Bible, and then I have the NASB on my phone here. But if anyone serves, they should do so with the strength God provides, so that in all things God may be praised through Jesus Christ. So, serving, right? Through these things, if you are serving, God will give you the strength to serve. But not only that, in Hebrews 13, serving and sacrificing, right? To show others compassion, to show others love, to show them grace, to show them wisdom, right? To put yourself, you're going to sacrifice time sometimes. And when you sacrifice a lot of time, there are a lot of times that as a leader, what will happen? You'll get tired. It will be hard. It will be tough. It's not life sometimes for others, but God says when you do, right? For with such sacrifices, God is pleased, right? God is pleased and love others. Philippians 2:3-4 says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. We've talked about this before. Selfishness does not make good. It does not make good for leadership quality. It does not help to build you as a leader as well. It doesn't no good when you are selfish in your own means, because usually what happens when you are selfish, right? You are not able to properly show love to the people that you are in charge of or leading. I like this amplified version. It makes it a little bit better. It says, do nothing from factional motives through contentiousness, strife, selfishness, or for unworthy ends, or prompted by conceit and empty arrogance. It says, instead, in the true spirit of humility, lowliness of the mind, let each regard the others as better than and superior to himself, thinking more highly of one another than you do of yourselves. So, it says, rather in humility, value others above yourself. You're not looking for your own interests. You're not doing it for your own self. You're not going to serve others for your own sake, right? You're not doing it to make yourself feel better or to be proud or to have recognition from other people. There are too many people who will what? Give money into organizations as a leader or a business person that is high up in their field only because it brings them satisfaction. Like, oh, I helped a fellow human being for what they did. I'm high, I'm worthy. I'm this. And now they put themselves on this high platform. But usually the people that you never hear about that give the most or do the most to help people are the ones that aren't in the news, the ones that aren't gloating about it, the ones that aren't in their social media being like, hey guys, I just gave to this thing or whatever the case may be. Most people, especially a leader, who understands his place and isn't doing it out of selfishness, but doing it out of love to serve other people and to help them, right, will not gloat about what they've done, but their glorification will come regardless. People will see it and show, right? They will greet them, they'll shake their hand, they'll do whatever, right? They'll recognize them for what they have done without them having to gloat about it. But people who tend to gloat, usually the people that they gave to, wherever they did to or helped, right, don't tend to praise that person for what they did when they realize it's what selfish means. So then what usually happens is they lose connection with those people because they realize they're not doing it for the right reason. John 15:12-13 says, "My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friend." The Amplified says, "No one has greater love, no one has shown stronger affection than to lay down, to give up his own life for his friends," right? So this is a true meaning of self-sacrifice. So when Jesus died for us, right, the 12 disciples weren't just his disciples, but they were also his family. They were his friends, right? They were his brothers, right? Jesus didn't show them love just because he was their leader. He showed them love because he saw them as people that could do greater, right? He loved them. He truly loved them. So he showed no greater love than when he laid down his life on the cross and died for us, right? So this is a perfect example of what a leader is capable of doing. He not only gave up his life to step forward, right, to show us and give us an example of what it means to give up our own life to save and help our friends to become better. He's showing us this very example to command us as well to love one another and to love this way. And the second thing I wrote down was you must lead by example, right? So not only did Jesus sacrifice, but he did lead by example as well. In John 13:13-17, if you could pull that up. I have two different versions, but I liked how the Amplified one says it. John 13, verses 13-17. "You call me the teacher, master, and the Lord, and you are right in doing so, for that is what I am. If I then, your Lord and teacher, your master, have washed your feet, you ought, it is your duty, you are under obligation, you owe it, to wash one another's feet. For I have given you this as an example, so that you should do in your turn what I have done to you. And I assure you, most solemnly, I tell you, a servant is no greater than his master, and no one is sent. No one who is sent is superior to the one who sent him. If you know these things, blessed and happy and to be envied are you if you practice them, if you act accordingly and really do them." The NASB says, "If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them." So this is Jesus speaking, right? And he's saying to them, you call me this, you call me that. You say I'm teacher, master, Lord, and all these different things. But he is showing an example, right?
That's right.
When he washed the feet of the disciples, he is showing them in practice, like this verse says, if you practice them, right, accordingly, when you do these things, you will be blessed. He is showing that an example. I am no greater than what you are doing. He's like, you may serve me, but I shall also serve you. That's why you would think, right, that Jesus doesn't need to wash their feet. He's Jesus. He has no reason to. He's their leader. Everyone should be praising him, doing things for him, helping him out, right? But Jesus is like, no. In order to show you what you should be doing when you serve me, I will also show you what to do, and I will do something to serve you. So he gets down on his knees, he washes their feet, and he says these things. He says, I am no better. You as a slave are no better than the master, nor is the one who is sent greater than the one who sent him. So he's saying that the slave is not better than the master, and the master is not necessarily better than the slave. The leader, no matter how great he is, should never put down the people underneath him just because he's a leader. He should show them that, hey, I am also someone capable of doing what you are doing, right? I have been in your place. I can show you what to do. I can be the example. I can be a true leader, the one you want me to be, and that's what you want. If you're going to lead someone, whether it be in a business or whether you're doing it in a church, you're not going to just lead them. You have to lead by example. If you cannot show the people under you what they're supposed to do in any way, how are they going to know what to do when you don't give them example, right? Like if my dad were to only preach about signs and wonders and miracles, but never show example, right? How would I know how true that is, right? Or how powerful that is, and if I never saw it happen, if I never experienced it, if I never got example of how to do it or how to pray for people, right? I would never know how to pray for someone if I never got the example from someone else first. It's the same thing when we were in South Africa. In order to lead by example like when we were over there on the trip, my brother also had to do the same thing. He had to show other people, hey, this is how you do it. This is what you're supposed to do. This is how we do this. This is how we do that. It's the same thing. If I'm going to show people the editing stuff that I do at work or whatever, if someone were to take my place, I can't just say, hey, if you have experience, that's cool. I'm going to be in charge of you. You do whatever you got to do, whatever, blah, blah, blah. How are they going to know what I'm actually doing unless I actually tell them how to do it? That's why when it comes to certain things, I ask lots of questions. So this is just a tip for someone. If you're wanting to become a leader, you must understand, you must ask lots of questions so that the person in charge of you will give you an example of what needs to be done, right? If I'm like, hey, I need to learn how to build this, or hey, I need to learn how to do that, or hey, I need to learn how you pray for people. How are you praying for people? How does this happen? What do I need to do to take my step in my faith further, right? You're going to want someone who can lead by example to show you what to do, not someone who has no idea what they're doing. Because they're like, well, this is kind of what I do, but I don't really like show people, blah, blah, blah. I'm not entirely sure, you know what I mean? Like people that aren't sure can't lead. If you're not sure of what you're doing, I would not step into a place of leadership if you're unsure. But there are also times that even in your unsureness, if you are trusting God, right? If you trust God to help you lead when you're unsure, God will provide, right? He will show you what to do. You don't always have to know what you're doing. But people that are unsure in the natural, right, don't know what they're doing. They need someone to lead them by example. And that's the same thing. When we read into the Word and we read the Bible and we pray, right, God is showing us an example time after time, verse after verse. What we need to do as leaders in order to show others as well what they're supposed to do is when they're underneath or whatever they're, oh, something in my eye. But another verse I wanted to read was Titus 2:7. It says, in all things, show yourself to be an example of good deeds with purity, doctrine. Titus 2:7. And show your own self in all respects to be a pattern, a model of good deeds and works, teaching what is unadulterated. Oh, this is I like this. Showing gravity, having the strictest regard for truth and purity. This is like really breaking that down. I love that. I was basically going to say that is what I was about to say, but the verse says it now. I was about to transcribe the verse I just said, but the Amplify basically just said what I was going to say. When you are showing yourself good example and good deeds, you're wanting to be a good model, right? Which is what we're talking about is good example. You must first, what do we say? Learn to sacrifice and show love to others. And then when you're doing these things, also know and understand how to set an example. If you are not a good model, if you're not capable of doing the work and being a good teacher, if you are unadulterated, right, what this verse says, and showing gravity, if you are not strict in what you're supposed to do for your truth, if you have no good purity, no good motive, right, you are selfish, you're not going to be capable of leading by example. Your heart will show, right? When your heart is dark and your heart is not a pure motive, your heart is not a good intention, because like we talked about the other week, the difference between being intention and being intentionally doing something, right? When you have good intention, it has the goal, the plan, so you might be planning to do something righteous. You might be planning to show good example, but then when you don't do it, then that means the intentionality portion of that shows you didn't do it, right? So when you don't lead by example, you're not going to be able to also take that first thing I mentioned, which was self-sacrifice. If you can't show by example, that means you're not capable of showing love to the people that you must serve either. A good leader will know how to sacrifice, but also show love and restraint as well, right? There are times that you might want to go out of your way to help do something, but not all the time is going completely out of your way to do something that may not be in your parameter always a good thing. You must have some kind of restraint as well. You can show love, right? And you can show a serving heart. You can be compassionate to people, but there are also times you need to have restraint. Because it's the same thing with relationships. There are times, right, when you have relationships with people, but it is what? It is best to have distance and pray that these people find an answer and pray that they find God than to keep sacrificing your time when they're not doing anything with it. If you're wasting all of your time and you're leading by example and you are serving others and then people still aren't picking up the time that you spent with them, the examples that you are showing them, the love that you are showing them, and they're still not picking up from that, they're still not seeing what's going on, and they're still not changing their way, they're still not doing anything with it, that means there are times you got to show restraint, step back. Because there's only so much you can do in your own strength, right? Sometimes you have to understand that there are times, like I said, you've got to step back and let God deal with it. Because not all the time as a leader are you going to be able to deal with every single situation that has happened within your church or within your business or within your group of friends or whatever it may be. Not all the time can you solve everything. You got to take a step back and let God deal with it, because when you do so much, right, it puts stress on you, right? It can make you angry. It can make you tired. It can make you upset with people. It can make you sad. It can put you down. It can make you depressed, right? You start feeling all these different emotions and different things going on in your life because you're what? You're sacrificing too much for someone who is taking too little. So if you want to be a good leader, the first thing you want to do is understand how to sacrifice your time and show love for others. You must lead by example. But the last thing you want to understand is to show restraint. If you're not capable of showing restraint sometimes toward people that don't understand, you're going to be stuck helping them and just digging yourself down further and further until you can no longer help. And then guess what? You're going to end up being in the same place they are. And you don't want that. You're better than that. God puts you in a higher place for a reason. He puts you in a place of leadership for a reason. You don't want to put yourself down in someone else's gutter. You want to help them as much as you can, and if they can't listen to what you have to say and they aren't coming out of it, you need to take a step back and let God deal with it after that. Them and God. They need to deal with their issues with God. It doesn't have to always be you. You don't always have to be the one to do things, right? Let God take control of the situation when you are no longer capable of doing it, right? This mom, I love second. For the love of Christ controls and urges and impels us, because we are of opinion and conviction that if one died for all, then all died. 2 Corinthians 5:14. I appreciate that, Mom. She's hearing what I'm saying in the spirit, right? She found the verse that I'm reiterating in my own, in the spirit, what God's trying to say right now, right? But I want to be able to. That's a good verse. I want to be able to end off with that. So just as key points, like I mentioned, key one, as a leader, make sure you understand how to serve others and show love. The second thing, understand as a leader how to lead by example. And the third thing is understand when you have to step back and let God deal with it, right? Because like I said, as a leader, sometimes you can't always deal with everything. So I just want to go ahead and pray. Thank you for everyone that's watching, Lord, for everyone that's here. God, I pray that as we come to understand what the sacrifice that Jesus laid down on the cross for us, when he died for us to set us free, to give us new life, to give us new love, to give us new hope, we just want to see, as in that example, he also showed us how to be a better leader, how to self-sacrifice, how to love others as well. So we're going to pray that we take this and we also follow in the example of Jesus to understand how to sacrifice when it comes to loving others, to step into a higher place of leadership.